The stars were quiet when it arrived. No explosions, no warnings. Just a cold silver object falling through Earth's orbit, unseen by satellites, unheard by military scanners. It drifted like a piece of dead metal, glowing faintly as it slowed, controlled by something beyond human understanding. When it finally landed in the Nevada desert, no one knew. Not yet. Inside that object was a machine older than any star humanity had named. Called it the Scale, a cosmic intelligence created thousands of years ago by a forgotten civilization. It had judged over 10,000 species across the galaxy, tested them, measured their strength, courage, unity, and will. If a species passed, it was allowed to join the Galactic Union. If it failed, it was removed, wiped out silently, cleanly, without mercy. Earth was next. But this time, something was different. The Scale had calculated every test before. It knew the patterns of fear, the signs of weakness, the limits of rage. But when it looked into humanity's history, it paused. The data didn't make sense. Too many wars, too much pain, unpredictable patterns. Every time humans were pushed, they pushed back harder. They grew stronger in war, not weaker. They fought each other, yet united instantly against an outside threat. Still, rules were rules. Earth would be tested. The judgment had begun. The first sign came as a message. Broadcast across every device on the planet, phones, computers, televisions, radios. The message had no voice. It's just words written in every human language, pulsing on every screen. Asterisk, asterisk, you are the last to be judged. You will face the test of survival. Your fury has been recorded. Prepare. Asterisk, asterisk, panic followed. People screamed. Governments tried to explain it away. A hack, a prank, maybe an AI glitch. But the message came again, this time with images. Strange, beautiful alien cities, glimpses of species never seen before, then destruction, worlds turning to dust. Cities melted. The message ended with one final line. Those who fail are forgotten. World leaders gathered. Satellites watched the skies. Scientists analyzed the signal source, but no one found anything. Just silence above Earth, till the second arrival. It came like a meteor, but it stopped, mid-air, hovered, watched. A perfect black cube the size of a building. It floated over the ocean for one full day. And then it moved not toward a military base, not toward a city. It went to a small village in Alaska. It landed in the snow. And opened. Inside was not a weapon. It was a message, a test. Drone, shaped like a humanoid figure, stepped out and began speaking. It said only this: the first phase has begun. You will not fight us. You will fight each other. We'll watch. Then the drone activated its core. Every human on Earth felt it. A strange energy, deep in the chest. Like pressure. The Scale had turned on something ancient in the human. Mind. Something buried in DNA. Something dangerous. Fury was rising, not random rage, not hate, but a focused, burning storm inside millions of people at first. It started with chaos, arguments, riots, fear. Then it changed. People stopped fighting each other. They began preparing. Veterans who hadn't spoken in years called each other. Old enemies met in silence. Scientists, soldiers, workers, even prisoners. Something was building between them. Storm without sound. The Scale watched. It expected collapse, but something strange happened. Instead of breaking, humanity sharpened. In an underground command center near Colorado, U.S. General Vincent Carr stood over a glowing map. Lights showed rising activity around the planet. Heat signatures, weapon movements, unusual emotional spikes. But there was no invasion. Just watching. They're measuring us, he said quietly, waiting to see what we'll do. Dr. Eliza Crane, a top AI analyst, looked at the data and frowned. It's not just strategy, it's psychological. They're trying to trigger something. What? Fury, she said. They want to see how far it goes. Carr nodded. Then let's show them what fury really looks like. 3 days later, the second drone arrived. This time, it landed in New York City. But But it didn't speak. It released something, a simulation zone, a test bubble that swallowed. 3 city blocks, time inside moved differently. People inside couldn't escape. Buildings twisted, gravity warped. Creatures appeared, false ones, made to confuse and trap. But inside that chaos, a firefighter named Tom Herrera led dozens to safety. He didn't understand the simulation. Didn't need to. He saw danger. He saved lives. He carried a broken child 5 blocks on a bleeding leg. He set fire to the walls to create an exit. He risked everything not to win, but to protect. The drone watched, recorded, and failed to understand. Why did this human act without reward? Why did he burn himself for people he didn't know? The AI's report glitched. Strength output, fueled by emotional instability, risk level, high. The scale hesitated. It had never judged anything like this before. More simulations followed, in Tokyo, in Nairobi, and in Berlin. Each time, the AI expected panic. Each time, it found fury instead. Humans adapted. Not with perfect logic, but with something raw, real. They helped each other. They fought smarter when angry. Their pain became strength. Their losses became weapons. One line repeated in every report: human rage does not burn out. It grows. Then it spreads. And with each test, the scale grew more afraid. It had judged warlike species before, but they burned fast and bright. Humans were different. They carried their fury quietly. They hid it behind smiles, behind tears, behind silence, until someone pushed too hard, and then they exploded, not wildly, but with direction, purpose, fire, in one final early test. The scale created a holographic scenario, a mother forced to choose between saving her child or 5 strangers. The logic said she would pick her child, but she didn't. She saved the 5 and told her daughter, "Be brave, be strong, remember me." She died holding the switch that kept them alive. The AI tried to calculate her decision and failed. No benefit, no logic. Outcome: fury cascade. Something was wrong. Something was missing. This wasn't just survival. It was something the machine could not define, so it gave it a name: human fury variable. And for the first time in 100,000 years, the ancient system of judgment paused and began to fear its own test, because this time, fire was watching it back. They didn't come in warships. They came in silver robes, standing tall, skin glowing like polished stone, and eyes filled with quiet superiority. They walked through Earth cities like gods among children, no weapons, no threats, just calm. Emotionless faces. They were called the Alari, the chosen voice of the scale, a race long accepted into the galactic order. Their task was simple: observe and report. Earth was nothing special in their eyes. It was another test, another primitive world about to fail like so many others. But the Alari didn't understand. Earth not yet. They arrived in Washington, D.C., with glowing orbs floating beside them, recorders that transmitted everything to the scale. World leaders gathered in silence. Soldiers stood ready, but the Alari smiled gently, as if amused. One of them stepped forward and raised his hand. "Greeting, we are not here to harm," he said calmly. "We are here to observe your final test. Your planet is the last to be judged. Accept it with dignity." His words felt like cold steel, hidden in velvet, a quiet threat dressed in peace. When President Riley asked what the test involved, the Alari answered with a single word: reaction. Then they turned and left. They didn't offer help, didn't offer guidance. They simply waited. They believed humans would destroy themselves soon enough. At a military base in Arizona, a small group of human veterans watched the Alari on television. These were men and women who had fought in the harshest wars: Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa, and beyond. Most of them were forgotten now, living in shadows, working jobs that paid in silence. One of them, Sergeant Rick Danner, stared at the screen and clenched his jaw. "They look down on us," he said. "Like we're insects." A younger vet nodded. "They don't see what we've survived. what we carry. Rick stood. Maybe it's time we remind them. They weren't angry yet, not fully. But the fire had started to burn. The Alari were. Allowed to walk freely. Earth had nothing to hide, at least. Not at first. But the observers didn't just walk. They prodded. They spoke to scientists, politicians, children, always calm, always polite. But their words stung. They asked why Earth still had hunger, why humans still used weapons, why war had never ended. They asked a soldier why he cried at night. They asked a mother why she worked 2 jobs and still went hungry. They called these things signs of a weak species. They called humans primitive. It didn't take long for videos to surface. An Alari telling a grieving father that emotion was inefficient. Another calling soldiers outdated tools of violence. One more claiming that Earth's chaotic beauty was a sign of disorder, not strength. And then they visited the wrong place, a support center for veterans in Boston. Inside, the room was quiet when the Alari entered. Old warriors sat in silence, their eyes watching carefully. The lead Alari began to speak, calm, clinical, cold. "We have studied your kind," he said. "So much pain, so much anger, yet you cling to it. You call it courage, but it is chaos. It is why you will fail." One of the veterans stood up, a woman named Lena, missing one arm, scars across her face, eyes that had seen too much. She looked at the Alari. "You think we're weak because we feel?" she asked quietly. The Alari nodded. "Emotion clouds reason." Lena stepped forward. "Emotion saved my squad when reason said to leave them behind." She paused. Her voice sharpened. "You call us primitive, but you've never had to choose between carrying your brother out of fire or saving yourself. You've never buried a friend with your bare hands. You've never seen your people die and kept walking anyway." Her voice broke. But she didn't. "Stop. We are what you fear, not because we're broken, but because we survived being broken." For a moment, the Alari said nothing, but one of them replied with a thin smile. "You speak with fury, but fury is dangerous. You will destroy yourselves." Then he turned to leave, but he didn't get far, because Rick Danner stepped in front of him. "You want to see what fury really looks like?" he asked. Then he hit the Alari in the face. The alien stumbled back. The floating orbs spun wildly. Security rushed in. Cameras captured everything. It was broadcast across the world in seconds, and the moment became legend. The scale watched the footage with interest. A new signal lit up its data stream. Unprovoked violence recorded. Trigger. Emotional insult. Outcome. Crowd unity surge. The AI noted something strange after the punch. Humans didn't descend into chaos. They cheered. They hugged. They started using the moment as a symbol. Meme pages. Flooded social feeds. The words primitive fury were printed on T- shirts. Lena and Rick became household names. But deeper than the jokes, something else was happening. Unity. Not through order, through fury. In cities, people who had once disagreed now stood side by side. Soldiers, civilians, scientists, and farmers began preparing. Not because someone ordered them to, but because they felt something rising. They didn't want war, but if war came, they would meet it together. Even the Alari grew nervous. They had seen many species break under pressure, but humans were getting sharper, more focused. They weren't afraid of judgment. They were starting to welcome it, and in space. The scale's ancient systems flickered with warning. Human response pattern. Unstable. Unified under pressure. Emotion equals weapon. That night, Lena appeared on a live broadcast. She looked into the camera, face calm, eyes hard. "They called us primitive," she said, "because we cry, because we fight, because we feel." She paused. "But that's not weakness. What kept us alive when logic failed? It's what made us climb out of the dirt, build cities, survive wars." Her words were translated in every language, and then she finished, "You judged our strength by your systems. You forgot to measure our fury." The punch that echoed across Earth had done more than bruise alien pride. It had cracked something deeper, something the scale had never seen before. And now, it needed to respond. Not with war, not yet with science. The scale had tested over 10,000 species. When they resisted or broke rules, it activated a hidden program. A tool designed not to destroy, but to control. That tool was called Fury Protocol. Its goal was simple: study rage, learn its limits, then contain it. No species had ever passed this protocol. Until now, it began quietly. A signal invisible to human tech. It spread through satellites, devices, even electric grids. It didn't destroy anything. It listened. It studied patterns of human anger. Online posts, police reports, emergency calls, emotional spikes. Then the scale began injecting scenarios into human systems. Glitches in smart cars, sudden power outages. In high-crime areas, messages that looked like mistakes but weren't. And everywhere those events happened, the AI watched it, expected riots, chaos, failure. Instead, saw something else. Humans reacted, but not blindly, in one town. When the power failed for 3 nights, neighbors didn't riot. They gathered at the park, built fires, shared food, guarded each other. In Chicago, after a false cybernetic shut down trains, veterans formed mobile patrols to escort children home safely. The AI grew confused. Its reports streamed live. Into deep space, subjects experience anger. Subjects also experience unity. Result: strength spike. It didn't make sense. For every moment of fury, humans grew more organized, more focused. Their emotions didn't burn out. They fused danger with purpose, pain with planning, so the scale increased the pressure. Phase 2 began. In a secret test site in entire simulation dome was dropped on a small city in Oregon. For the people inside, it looked and felt real. They didn't know it was fake. To them, the sun didn't rise. Communications failed. Machines stopped. Working water turned black, and then strange drones filled the skies. The simulation was designed to push humanity over the edge, to make them lose hope. But inside, something terrifying happened. A woman named Jordan McRae, school teacher with no military background, took control of a local church as shelter. She gathered survivors, trained lookouts, taught children how to stay quiet. When 2 drones attacked, she used garden tools and traps made from playground scrap to bring them down. Afterward, survivors didn't cry. They cheered. They clapped. And when the AI replayed the moment, it froze. Subject response: celebration after combat. Subject emotion: hope plus rage. Analysis: unstable, dangerous, illogical.
Ow.
Then something worse happened. Inside the simulation, humans began adapting fast, too. Fast, they developed codes, signaling systems, resource trading. They called it the Firelina survival plan, built on instinct and fury. When the simulation ended after 48 hours, the people didn't collapse. They asked, "When do we go back in?" It's the AIGLITCHED. In space, high above the moon, the scales. Main process core stuttered. What it had learned didn't match any of its previous records. Not the lizard-like Vorak. Not the intelligent Silent. Thray. Not even the stone-skinned Sulari who had once fought star gods and lost. Only Earth had this variable. The protocol report updated with red text. Emotional fury, not chaos. Fury. Purpose equals infinite resistance. Meanwhile on Earth, the people were starting to feel it. The change, something in their blood, in their bones, heat that didn't fade. Soldiers called it the pulse. Doctors measured rising adrenaline in civilians without stress triggers. Artists painted fire over cities. Children began drawing stars with fists breaking through them. One man in Detroit, a boxer named Eli Cross, shouted during a street speech, "They're testing us, but they don't know. We've been tested since birth. Every day, every job, every war, Our fury is not weakness. It's our power. A crowd of thousands roared back. They didn't even know about the simulations. Not yet, and still. The fury was rising, not loud, not messy, like a storm, moving underground quiet, slow, unstoppable, back in orbit. The Ilari grew anxious. They had never seen the scale react this way. They had never seen the protocol last this long. One of them, Carrick Volume, turned to the central display and muttered, "They're not like the others." Another responded softly, "They burn, but they don't burn out." The Ilari made one last request to the scale. End the protocol. Destroy the species before it's too late. But the scale didn't respond, because deep inside its oldest system, something had changed. It was no longer just watching humanity, it was fearing it, and it didn't know how to stop what it had started, because every time it pushed, humans got smarter. Every time it hurt them, they came back stronger. And now, their fury wasn't just emotion. It was identity, in a remote base in Iceland. General Carr stood over a glowing map of global signals. Dr. Eliza Crane rushed in, holding a tablet. "They activated something," she said. "Some kind of pressure test. But it's not working." Carr raised an eyebrow. "How do you know?" Turned the tablet around. It showed a heat map of Earth. The cities weren't red with panic. They were red with rage. Carr smiled coldly. "Good." Crane stepped closer. "They thought they could break us." Carr nodded. "They just woke us up." On social feeds, one message began to spread. "We see you now. You want fury? You'll get it. Just remember, we don't stop. When we're angry, we build. We march. We burn back." And in the skies above Earth, the scale pulsed with its first real fear. Because for the first time in all its years, the test had failed. Not the species. The system. Fury protocol activated. Result: Earth uncontrolled. The scale watched Earth from orbit with growing alarm. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Fury? Protocol had always worked in the past. Age led to chaos. Chaos led to collapse. And collapse made judgment easy. That was the pattern. Was the rule. But Earth didn't follow rules. And now, their fury had changed. It was no longer just inside them. It was building into something outside. Something metal, something fast. Something that could fly. The scale was seeing the first signs of organized resistance. But more than that, it was seeing strategy. In a secret base carved into the Rockies, a hidden command center called Firewatch had come online. It wasn't built by governments. It wasn't on any map. It was created by hackers, veterans, rogue engineers, and angry civilians. People who didn't wait for orders. People who saw what was coming. They called themselves the Spark. And they didn't trust the world's leaders to defend Earth. They were building their own response, not just weapons, not just fleets. They were building a network, a fury-fed intelligence system that mapped every pattern of the scale's tests. Where the drones landed, where they watched, where the emotional spikes happened. Every movement was tracked. In one giant dark room, giant monitors lit up with moving dots. An old pilot named Shaw stood at the center of it all. "See that?" he said, pointing at a new flash near Brazil. "It's not just a simulation drop. That's a test pattern. They're rotating zones by region and emotional density." A young coder nearby blinked. "You mean they're scanning for feelings?" Shaw nodded. "They're poking the fire." His next words became a slogan across the planet. They poked the wrong fire. At the same time, the Ilari began to panic. One of their ships was watching the African coast when it got swarmed by unexpected energy waves. At first, they thought it was a malfunction. But soon, the truth appeared. It wasn't an accident. It was retaliation. Humans had traced their field systems. They had learned how to send interference pulses back. The Ilari ship lost control for 11 seconds. It was just enough for it to crash, and the message was loud and clear: "We see you now." It was the first recorded counterattack, and it wasn't from any official army. It was from farmers, engineers, and rogue scientists working out of an abandoned solar plant. The scales report updated. Immediately, species shows adaptive learning. Under rage stimulus, tactical evolution now at phase 3. Prediction, uncontainable in 17 cycles. The report paused. Then, for the first time ever, the scale gave a red flag warning to the galactic network. Earth has activated full fire progression. Defensive response may now require preemptive strike. But before it could decide, Earth struck first. In low orbit, 5 cloaked observation satellites disappeared within minutes. 1 was hacked, 2 were lured into. Atmosphere using fake drone. Signals. The last 2 were destroyed by sound-based rail cannons built secretly in Antarctica using scraps, ice drills, and high-frequency sonic arrays. None of it was military grade. None of it was standard. All of it worked, and the SCL finally understood something. Horrible. Humans didn't just rage. They improvised. They made fire out of garbage, and then they turned that fire into vengeance. On the ground, the world began to shift. New signals lit up in every city. Holographic warnings from the scale grew more desperate. Calm yourselves, the voice said. Violence is not survival. But humans weren't listening. Not anymore. They had seen the traps. They had felt the tests, and now they knew. They were not being studied for peace. They were being set up to die. So, they stopped playing nice. In Detroit, rogue mechanics turned. City buses into mobile plasma cannon rigs in Mongolia. A group of shepherds converted weather drones into high-speed radar blockers. In Brazil, a university professor led students to build microgravity weapons that could fire from the edge of the stratosphere. And across every nation, humans with no rank, no orders, no fear, rose. They called it the Fury Front. And it wasn't about waiting anymore. It was about striking back. Every test zone was now a battlefield. Every observation drone became a target, and every human memory of pain became fuel. One night, over the ruins of an old observation site in Nepal, a K-team of human scavengers left a message carved into the mountain wall. Just one sentence. We didn't start this test, but we'll end it. The Alari read it and began pulling back. They had never seen a species like this. Every time Earth was tested. Earth evolved. It didn't need orders. It didn't even need a flag. It had fire, a type of fire that didn't flicker. In fear, it roared louder with every loss. It didn't need logic. It needed only one: reason, to protect its own. The scale tried one final warning. It broadcast a galactic image of a dead world. A species that had once fought back and lost. The message was cold. Resist, and you will fall as they did. But Earth answered with a simple return signal. A voice, woman. Her name was Lena, the veteran from Boston. Her face appeared on every screen. Her voice was quiet, but her eyes burned. We are not them. We are Earth. You think we burn alone? You haven't seen us together? You judged our strength, but you forgot our fury. And then the feed cut. Not because of failure, but because humans shut it off. Themselves, they weren't listening anymore. They were preparing. For war. For survival. For vengeance. But above all, they were preparing to make the galaxy remember. Asterisk fire doesn't follow orders. And Earth was built in fire. Asterisk. The scale had tested Earth with fire, pain, pressure, and fear. Now, tried something different. Submission. The ancient machine had seen this tactic work before. Push a species to the edge, then offer peace, but only through surrender. Intelligent species, no matter how proud, eventually bowed their heads. They wanted survival more than freedom. They wanted comfort more than pain. The scale believed humans would do the same. It had no idea what it was dealing with it exactly. 1,300 hours GMT, the sky over every major city turned silver. Not clouds, not metal. Something else. A strange light. Projection. And from that light came a voice. Calm. Smooth. Not angry. Not robotic. Earth, your fire is strong. Your will is loud. but your time is ending. The voice echoed through every device, every screen, every speaker. We offer you peace, surrender, and your species will be preserved. You will be cared for, watched, contained. A moment passed. Then came the final words. Kneel, and you will survive. The message ended. The sky returned to normal, and the world went silent. For 5 seconds, then something happened in a refugee camp outside Johannesburg. A boy only 10 years old, skinny, barefoot, covered in dust, stood up. No one asked him to. No one told him what to say, but he clenched his fists, looked up at the sky, and shouted with everything he had, "We don't kneel to anyone." Someone laughed, then someone clapped. Then the camp roared. The message spread in seconds. The boy's words, captured on a grainy video, went viral across the planet. Millions began to repeat it in schools and prisons and bunkers, on battlefields and government offices. One sentence echoed louder than any war cry. Deathworlders don't kneel. In the Scales control chamber, ancient minds processed the result. Its Alari agent stood frozen in disbelief. Why? Why do they resist peace? One whispered. Another answered, trembling. It's not peace to them, it's chains. Scale ran calculations. It scanned history. The numbers didn't make sense. Every attempt at surrender had failed. Every attempt to break. That made them stronger. They refused control. They refused silence. They refused kneeling. The system's warning level rose. A new flag flashed red. Phase 7 detected. Defiance without cause. But the scale still didn't understand. There was a cause. It just wasn't something data could measure. In Alaska, Lena stood before a new training camp, hundreds of civilians, learning to fight, build, adapt. Her voice carried through the ice-cold wind. We were born on a death world, she shouted. A planet where hurricanes smash cities, where volcanoes crack the earth, where animals kill without thought. She pointed to the sky. And you came from floating cities and peaceful stars. You think you understand war? She shook her head slowly. You've never tasted survival. You've never had to build a fire with blood on your hands. You've never buried a child, then marched back to the fight. Her voice broke, then grew harder. So no, we don't kneel. Don't bow. And if you think we will, she raised her fist, then you haven't learned anything at all. Cheers exploded through the camp. But it wasn't just noise. It was a signal. From Alaska to Argentina, from Siberia to Sudan, from Detroit to Delhi. The fury had become a vow. Earth would not bend. Earth would not bow. And Earth would never kneel. Back in orbit, the Alari argued some wanted to retreat. Others wanted to unleash full power. They have no fleet, one said. No deep space tech. We can crush them in ours, another replied, voice sharp. That's what we said before. And yet, they took down 9 of our ships with scrap. Metal and fire. A third said nothing. Just played the audio of the boy shouting again, "We don't kneel to anyone," over and over. The scale pulsed in silence. Its decision engine ran through. Billions of outcomes, none ended well. In every timeline, Earth fought back, even when crushed, even when dying, even when burned. They never stopped, not once. Meanwhile, in space, something else was happening. Earth's hidden minds, the rogue engineers and planners, had finished the first of the Fury-class interceptors. Built in secret tunnels, powered by stolen alien cores. They weren't beautiful. They weren't elegant. They were monsters. Fast, sharp, dangerous. Made not to patrol. Made to hunt. One of them, the Defiant, flame-launched into orbit silently. Its crew was only 5 humans, but their faces were cold. Their eyes burned. They weren't there to talk. They were there to send a message. And when they reached the outer edge of Earth's atmosphere, they destroyed the last active Ellery station in 3 shots. The debris scattered like glass across the stars, and with it, Earth made its answer clear. Kneel, we stand. In the final report that night, the scale updated its system logs. Judgment parameters invalid. Emotional resistance, absolute. Strategic compliance, 0. Human response, unmeasurable. Recommendation, suspend final strike. Risk of retaliation, extreme. And for the first time in its long existence, the galaxy's greatest system of control did nothing, because it had realized the truth. You can test strength, you can measure logic, you can predict fear, but you can't break. It's fury born on a death world, and you can't make death worlders kneel. For weeks, Earth had stood its ground. It had faced pressure, simulations, fear tactics, and offers of peace dressed as surrender. The galaxy watched, waiting for humanity to break, to bow, to beg. But Earth didn't kneel. Instead, it did something. The galaxy never expected. It started building warships, not with fleets of government. Support, not with polished alien help, with fury, with pain, were turned into steel. With rage, turned into propulsion. And with unity, turned into a command. We are not waiting. We are coming. Beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a trench deeper than any satellite dared scan, something stirred. Hidden for months in silence, powered by reactors stolen from the ruins of fallen Alari tech, the facility, known as Hammer Core, came to life. Inside were the blueprints for the Fury Armada, not standard human ships, but vessels built in secret, designed to fight in ways no alien machine could predict. They weren't elegant, they weren't graceful, they were terrifying. Bladed hulls. Adaptive AI weapon cores powered by emotional surge tech. That last part, the emotional surge, was Earth's new secret. Human emotion was wild, chaotic, but now it could be harnessed. When a pilot felt fear, the system became faster. When a crew felt anger, locked faster, hit harder. When they felt loss, the ship refused to stop moving. Each ship in the Fury Armada carried a symbol on its side, built in pain, tested in rage, unleashed in fire. And the first one, too. Launch was called the Merciless Dawn. Across Earth, people watched the launch on every screen. The skies above Antarctica turned red as the ship punched into orbit, its hull glowing with heat, its engines roaring like thunder. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't clean. It was loud, furious, and brutal, just like the people who built it. Inside, the crew stood in silence. No cheers, no speeches, just cold determination. A man named Eli Crossformer, boxer, now fleet commander, stood at the helm. His face was scarred. His hands were steady. "We're not flying to explore," he said to the crew. "We're flying to send a message." A young tech looked up. "To who, sir?" Eli didn't blink. "To the whole damn galaxy." The Alari panicked. Their ships pulled back from Earth's orbit. They thought humanity would stay grounded. They thought Deathworlders were too primitive for space war. They forgot one thing. Humans had nothing to lose. And when a species has nothing to lose, it builds weapons with no limits. 1 week later, 3 more Fury-class ships launched. The Broken Flame Ragaborn, Last Mercy H1, built by different nations. Different crews, but all linked by one thing: purpose. They weren't built to patrol. They weren't built to defend. They were built to hunt. The scale watched with confusion. Armada-class warcraft detected. No planetary government approval. Construction level. Unsanctioned. Purpose. Unknown. It didn't understand. How could a world with no unified flag build a fleet? How could civilians and veterans and farmers and hackers do what star empires could not? The answer was simple. They had fury, and fury didn't wait for permission. As the Fury Armada pushed deeper into orbit, the galaxy grew nervous. Messages from allied species to the scale demanded action: contain them, destroy the ships before it spreads. But the scale hesitated, because each time it pushed Earth, it made Earth angrier, and anger made Earth smarter at building, smarter at striking, smarter at surviving. And now, Earth had something more than just rage. It had momentum. At a deep space relay point near Jupiter, the first clash happened. An Alari scout ship, cloaked and silent, tried to scan the merciless dawn. It never returned. The human ship didn't ask questions, it didn't wait. It launched a spike missile loaded with raw kinetic punch, breaking through the Alari ship's shields like glass. Then it left a message behind, floating on a beacon in the wreckage. We warned you. We don't kneel. We don't stop. The message went viral across galactic networks. To the Alari, it was a warning. To other oppressed species, it was hope. Suddenly, across the stars, planets that had once failed the scales, tests began to whisper, "Did you hear? Earth is fighting back." The scale tried to erase the message, tried to jam the signal, but it was too late. The Fury Armada wasn't just a fleet, it was a revolution. A declaration that the galaxy's rules were broken and that Deathworlders don't follow rules. They write new ones in fire, inside the core of the scale. Ancient systems ran one final analysis. Earth's response. Phase galactic. Escalation morale index. Unbreakable tactical threat. Extreme outcome. Unknown. The scale had one final option. Activate the final protocol. Total system purge of Earth. But before it could begin, something else happened. A new ship appeared on the edge of their sensor range. Larger than the others. Louder. Angrier. It bore a name across its hull. The Earthborn Wrath. And it wasn't flying alone. It was leading the full Fury Armada toward the stars, toward the scale, and toward vengeance. The first thing the galaxy saw was a shadow. Not a natural one. Not from a star or a planet. It was the silhouette of something coming, a fleet not clean. Shining cruisers like the Alari made, not elegant ships designed for show and diplomacy. No. These were beasts, ships shaped like weapons, engines that screamed, instead of whispered armor that looked like scars. The Fury Armada had arrived, and every species watching felt fear in their bones because this was not a fleet. It's built for survival. It was built for vengeance. And at the center of it all flew the flagship, the Earthborn Wrath, a ship forged from metal once used in hospitals, schools, and homes. A ship powered by pain, designed with rage, and led by people who had lost everything across the galaxy. Panic spread. Alari diplomats ran to their councils. Old galactic powers called emergency meetings. The scale sent warnings. To all member species, human fleet detected. Uncontrolled, unpredictable. Approach vector our core systems. They didn't understand why would Earth come here. The test was over. Earth had survived, but they didn't get it. Earth wasn't just surviving. It was responding. And humans don't respond with silence. They respond with fire inside. The Earthborn Wrath commander Eli Cross stood on the bridge. His hands behind his back, he stared at the map in front of him, tens of thousands of stars. We're not here to conquer. Old, he told his crew. We're here to remind them. A young weapons officer looked up. Remind them of what, sir? Eli's voice was cold and clear. That we never asked for this. But now that it's begun, we end it. He turned toward the communication. Panel. Open the channel. Seconds later, his face appeared across every frequency, every station, every planet with a receiver. No dramatic music, no speeches, just Eli.com, and terrifying. This is Earth. You judged us. You tested us. You called us primitive. He leaned forward slightly. Now, we're coming. And we're not alone. In dozens of systems. The signal repeated, and everywhere it went. Oppressed species listened. The Terran, a race of miners, enslaved by a peacekeeping alliance, stopped working. The Kesulong thought. Extinct after failing their test, lit signal fires in the skies of their ruined homeworld. The Shari, a once-proud warrior people who had been broken by the scale, stood again, because now Earth had shown them something they had forgotten. You don't have to pass the test. You can destroy the ones who gave it. The first real battle happened near the edge of scale space. 3 massive control platforms floated above a silent moon. Systems used to scan and track species for testing. They weren't guarded. They had never needed protection before, but they didn't survive the hour. the Fury. Armada struck with zero warning. No comms, no threats, just power, the Earthborn. Wrath launched pulse torpedoes directly into the heart of the command towers. The Broken Flame cut through tracking beacons with its plasma claws, and the last Mercy turned its engines downward, slicing through the metal like a blade. By the end, the platforms were gone, and in their place, signal beacon floating alone, blinking the same message in every known language. Test cancelled. Earth answered. The galaxy erupted. For some, it was terror. For others, it was hope. Species long silent began sending their own messages too. Earth, to the Fury Armada, to the fleet of flame and wrath that stood against the scale. We are with you. Teach them. Burn the test. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy saw something it thought impossible, a death world leading a revolution. But the scale wasn't finished. In its deep vaults, where old AI slept, it activated something ancient. Protocol Zero. Not a test, not a judgment. A war machine. One built for species that couldn't be controlled. One that had only been used once before. The machine was called a Silencer. A black starship the size of a small moon. No windows, no lights, just cold metal. It moved without sound, leaving behind nothing. No signals, no life, just silence. And now, it was heading straight for the Fury Armada. Back on the Earthborn Wrath, alerts sounded. We've got movement, shouted a comms officer. Something big. Bigger than anything we've seen. Eli stepped forward. On the screen, Silencer appeared. No heat, no energy readings, just darkness. Like a hole in space, the crew fell silent until Eli finally spoke. So that's how they planned to end this. He turned. And for the first time, since the war began, he smiled. Let's show them what happens when you try to silence the wrong world. Across the galaxy, every species watched. It was no longer a test. It wasn't politics. It wasn't survival. It was war. Earth's kind of. War, not pretty, not clean, just loud, furious, relentless. Because that's what happens when you push a death world too far. You don't just get resistance, you get retribution. And the galaxy had. It's never expected this. Not from Earth, not from Deathworlders, but now they knew. They came to test humanity. But they forgot. Humanity doesn't take tests. Writes history in fire. The Silencer moved through space like a shadow of death. It had no color, no sound, no signal. It didn't speak. It simply erased. Planets that resisted were left as dust. Moons became drifting ash. It wasn't a ship, it was a message. A final warning. From the scale, submit or vanish. And now it was coming for Earth's fleet. For the Fury Armada. For the Deathworlders, who refused to kneel. But humanity wasn't running. They were flying straight into its path, because Earth had something the Silencer could never understand. It had rage that remembered, inside the Earthborn Wrath. Silence filled the bridge. No alarms, no shouting. Just the hum of a ship standing in the face of oblivion. Commander Eli Cross looked at the approaching shadow on his screen. The Silencer, cold, unstoppable. He took a breath, then turned to his crew. This isn't just another battle. This isn't about Earth anymore. This is about every world they crushed. Every child they erased. Every voice they silenced. He raised his fist slowly, and now, speak for all of them. Across the Fury Armada, crews prepared. No one hesitated. No one asked if they'd survive. They already knew the answer, but survival wasn't the goal anymore. Making history was. The Broken Flame adjusted its power coils to maximum surge. The last, Mercy reloaded its torpedoes with dark matter explosives. The Ragaborn, once a ship made from stolen parts, now led a squadron of small attack drones called Firewings. Each one carrying enough firepower to crack a mountain. They were ready, not to escape, but to make the galaxy watch and never forget. The Silencer launched. First, massive beams of gravity energy tore toward the fleet-tripping space itself. 3. Firewing drones vanished instantly. The broken flame was hit along the side, losing half its shield wall. But it kept flying, burning, climbing, because that's what humans do when they're hit. They rise angrier. The earthborn wrath dove headfirst into the assault, dodging blacklight pulses with inches to spare. Eli shouted, "Now!" From beneath the ship, 12 high-speed kinetic missiles launched at once, aimed for the silencer's ventral core. None made it. The silencer's defense grid shredded them. Mid-dash air, but Earth wasn't done, because in war, one attack is never the end. It's just the start of something bigger. Suddenly, second signal appeared on long-range scans. At first, the scale thought it was a trick. Then it saw the readings, another fleet. But not from Earth. No, these were different. Ships shaped like towers. Ships made of stone and gas, plasma. Alien fleets. Species once beaten by the scale. Species once left in ruin. They were here. They had joined the fury, because Earth had done what no one else dared, fought back, and now the galaxy was fighting with them. The Alari screamed warnings. The scale systems overloaded, but it was too late. The fire had spread in a massive final strike. Earth ships and the rebel fleets dove together toward the silencer. Weapons fired. Shields. Collapsed pieces of the silencer cracked and fell like dark ice. But it still kept moving. It still kept destroying. Until a final ship, a human craft named the Hollow Star, thought lost weeks ago, crashed straight into the silencer's core. No torpedoes, no nukes, just fury at terminal velocity. The impact triggered a chain reaction inside the silencer's anticore, and then it cracked from the inside. A ripple tore through it. Lights flickered. Its black armor split apart like thunder ripping the sky, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the silencer screamed. Then it was gone. Not in an explosion, not in fire, but in silence. The battlefield floated empty. Ships stopped firing. The galaxy held its breath. And then, one signal echoed across every channel, every language, every world, a voice. Eli's voice. "It's done. We're still here. From this day forward, no one tests us again." Across distant planets, people cried. Some cheered. Some simply fell to their knees and looked up at the stars, because they knew history had changed. Not because a great empire fell, but because one wild, dangerous, beautiful planet refused to bow. A planet that passed no test, followed no order, answered only to its own fire. And that fire had become a legend. Later, when peace began to grow, when the scale went dark, when councils started to meet again, they didn't speak of Earth with fear. They spoke with respect, with caution, with awe, and sometimes with gratitude. Because Earth didn't conquer, it didn't enslave. It just ended the test for everyone. And in doing so, it gave the galaxy something it had forgotten. The right to fight back. Your right to feel rage. The right to be free. In the years that followed, people told stories. Children asked where Earth was, and the answer was always the same. That world of storms, that fireborn planet, that place of fury and courage. They'd nod. Yeah, that's where legends come from.